Okay, Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, the abridged code of Jewish law. Welcome, and we are doing chapter 68, Siman Samach Ches. Din Tefillas Derech Shal Davar Mitzrich Mezar B'Derech. These are the laws of the traveler's prayer and various things that a person needs to be careful about whilst traveling. Okay, so number one, Aleph Yoytz Derech. Someone who goes out on a trip. Bein bebeisoi, bein makom shaylon b'derech, bein chazros lebeisoi. So he leaves. Doesn't matter if he's leaving from his house. Doesn't matter if he's leaving from an overnight pit stop. So let's say you're traveling and it takes a few days and you stay somewhere overnight. Or you're leaving on the return journey to go home. Doesn't matter. Anytime you're leaving. After you leave the the literally the pregnant part of the city, but I was even the little bits that stick out. They used to have walled cities that were round, but then there would be little huts or different things outside. All these little bits, the outskirts, the Hainu. That means Shivim Amma Shnei Shlishi Amma, 70 and 2/3 of an Amma apart. There's no more houses. After the house is the furthest house. So once a person's done that, Halal Tefillas Derech, you should say the traveler's prayer. Now, most major cities today, you could travel for days. I mean, you can almost drive to different states, and sometimes never leave. There's houses on either side, right, of the highway. Certainly walking, if not driving. So it can happen. But once you leave the city, you say Tfilas Derech. So what do you say? Hirotzim u'fenecho, may it be your will before you. Hashem Elokeinu v'kavosenu, Hashem our God, God of our fathers, Shaldecheinu l'shalom b'chulu, that you should lead us in peace, etc. Now, interestingly, Oimra b'loshen rabim, we say it in plural form. Right? Rak, except for there's one phrase, you should grant me in grace. Oim b'loshen yochid, we say that in singular. So the whole thing is said in plural, except for one phrase. And ideally, a person should say it after they've left the mill. It's about a kilometer from the outskirts of the city. Now, the reason that we say the majority of it in plural is because by including ourselves in the community, we're making a quest to be protected. I mean, today, Baruch Hashem, most places where we travel, it's not so dangerous, but it could be it is. Depends where a person's traveling to. And definitely in the past, going outside the cities was potentially very dangerous. So maybe we don't have enough merits on our own. So if we include ourselves as part of the community, the part of the collective, so then it's everyone's merits. Now, once you're already on the road, though, so the initial trip, you have to wait till you leave the city before you say Tfilas Derech. Let's say you're going, it takes more than one day. Once you stay overnight, then as soon as you're ready to leave, even before you leave, you say Tfilas Derech again. Okay. So that's if you're actually traveling. So if you're still traveling and you stay overnight, then you say Tfilas Derech again. I'll just mention that there's a Chabad custom that while you're away on the trip, that each morning you say the Tfilas Derech without Hashem's name. But that's not what this is talking about. This is talking about when you're still traveling, you stay overnight, then you say it properly with Hashem's name, day 2. All right. Base number 2. Ein lispalo oisa leimkein yeshel leches. L'chol pachas parsa. You only say this prayer if you're at least traveling a parsa. A parsa is about 4 kilometers. So what's that? 2.5, a little more than 2.5. Yeah, about a little less than 2.5 miles. Right? If you're not traveling that far, then even if there's no houses, so you don't say it. And ideally, you should say it while you're in the first parsa of the city. But if you got, you can say the prayer as long as you're still on the road. As long as you haven't entered the last pass of the trip, you didn't get to the within a passa of 2.5 miles of your destination. So the trip, so passa is about, as we said, about 4 kilometers, about 2.5 miles, a bit more. So 2 passes, the trip has to be 2 passes, so double that, and minimum in order to say it. All right. That's if you're traveling through a relative. By the way, this that we said that's a minimum distance is if you're traveling through a relatively safe. Because normally a short distance between 2 cities or 2 places, it's relatively safe. But it happens to be that a person is going through a very dangerous area outside of the city. Then he could say Tfilas Derech, even on a shorter trip. Okay, number 3. Tfilas Derech Sichim LaAmra Samach LeVracha Cheres. Ideally, Tfilas Derech should be said next to another bracha. In other words, following another bracha. And therefore, if you're going to leave in the morning, and you're going to say the morning blessings on the road, en route, but you spent the night in a city along the way, then gam koidim shiotze. Since you stayed overnight, you're going to say Tfilas Derech even before you go out. And you'll be saying it even before the morning blessings. So anytime you're saying it around the morning blessings, then after we say the blessing, that's when we should say Tfilas Derech. So that's if you're leaving first thing in the morning or you stayed overnight en route. However, if you're leaving home after Shachris, after the morning prayer, then what should you do to say the traveler's prayer? You should eat or drink something on the way. And then you make the after blessing on the food. You go to the bathroom and you say the bracha ashiyotza. And then you say the traveler's prayer right after that. Okay, so welcome those just joined us. Chapter 68, number 4. Now, ideally, we should say the traveler's prayer standing up. However, if you are riding an animal or traveling in a wagon or on a plane or a train or an automobile, and you can't stop So if you're able to stop the animal, you stop it. So if it's not a problem, you stop. Because riding is like walking, and that's not respectful to say the blessing. Vim lav, but if it's not possible, you say it like that. So, you're in the bus or the plane or you're in the car. You can't really usually stop. You can't just stop in the middle of the freeway or whatever you're doing, or you know, you don't ask the pilot, "Can we just stop for a minute? Just turn the engine off. Just stop for a minute." That doesn't work that way. So we'll say it as is, whatever we're doing. All right. Number 5. Ein oirim oisa ila pam achas v'chol yom shehoilech. You only say Tfilas Derech, the traveler's prayer, once per day on the trip. So even though you might make multiple stops, you pull in somewhere and you stop and maybe even stop for lunch and you might even have a nap. Doesn't matter. Only once per day. However, if you stopped in a city with the intention of staying overnight, so in your mind, I finished traveling today. And then for whatever reason you change your mind and you continued on the journey that day without actually sleeping overnight, and you continued onward to your trip or return home, then you do say it a second time because in your mind you'd finished traveling for the night, for the day. So it's like a new trip. Now, if you're traveling through the day and night, you didn't lodge overnight. You didn't stay in the motel. You just kept driving, right? Sometimes, you got two drivers and you leave and you switch and one sleeps, one goes. Or you stayed overnight in like camped out. You camped out. You didn't really stay in a settled area. So then the first time you say it, in other words, when you embark on the trip, you say the Tfilas Derech with Hashem's name. But the other days, you say it without a blessing. Because if he didn't stop in a inhabited, settled place, then it's not considered a new journey. It's like the same journey. Right? You pull into a town, little town, and you stay in a motel or something on the trip. So that's an inhabited place. But if you sleep on the roadside in the middle of who knows where, then that's not considered a new trip. Okay. So those just joined us, chapter 68, we're up to number 6. Term say derech yesha litain tzedakah. Before going on a trip, a person should give some tzedakah. Shneimah says, "Tzedek lefonov yahalech v'yasim l'derech ba'amav." Right, tzedek, righteousness will precede him, and he'll guide his footsteps on the way. He should also get permission from the great men of the city. Right, it wasn't very common to travel in the past. So they will bless him, and his trip will be successful. And ideally, some people should escort him as he leaves. But and the one who's doing the escort should perish meno when he leaves. So he should stay in his place until the person disappears from sight. Those who want to bless someone who's going on a trip, they shouldn't say to him, Leich b'shalom, go in peace. Instead, they should say, Leich l'shalom, So two-piece. Why? Shari David Amar L'Avshalom. King David said to Avshalom, who was his son, Lech b'Shalom. And when he said that to him, Halach v'Nisla, he went and he got hung. V'Yisroi Shalom Moshe, but Yisroi said to Moshe, Lech l'Shalom, Olav Tzliach, and he went, who was successful. This is when he, took the Jews out of Egypt. So, although in English there's very little difference in meaning, and even in Hebrew it's just one letter, but we see in the Torah, one blessing seemed to be a successful blessing, and the other blessing not so. Shub derech v'yasek b'Torah. When a person is traveling, he should spend time studying Torah. Now, obviously, depends what you're doing. If you're if you're the one driving, it's best not to look into your book while you're and learn. Right? Keep your eyes on the road. There was a certain Rosh Hashiva. I don't want to give away names, but in the 80s, he used to drive from his house to the yeshiva every day, and he would be learning or something from a sefer. But he knew the way. He just used to drive without really paying attention. There's only a few blocks. And one time they built a traffic circle, roundabout in the road. And of course, he was looking in the book, so he didn't notice it, and he drove right into it. When the police came and asked him what happened, he says, "Well, it wasn't here yesterday." That's what happened. Anyway, but even if you're driving, there's plenty of things you can listen to. Torah anytime. There's plenty of shurim. So a person can still be listening, but it's good to be studying while you're traveling if you can, right? Again, if you have to concentrate, you have to read a map, it's going to be difficult. But if you're able to, it's a very good thing to do. Shnei, as it says, overlech l'cha b'derech. Right? So the mitzvah to study Torah, we've got various aspects to it. And one of the aspects is while you're on a trip. And while the person is traveling, and while they're away, they should try and say a few little psalms. With chavana, intention and humility. And a person should take food with him, even if he's going on a short distance, because you never know. Get stuck, so you should always take some food with you. Person should also take, here is talking about taking strings. Take some spare strings with you. But spare pair of tzitzis. When I travel on the plane, I normally put normally take a second pair of tzitzis anyway when I travel, but I put the spare pair in my hand luggage. It's supposed to check in. You never know. It's not a bad idea to take a spare yarmulke as well. Because maybe one of the strings will become fossil. Yasig ateris, and you can't get another string. Can't get it because it's not just regular string. It has to be spun with for the sake of the mitzvah. So you can't get it along the way. Be a spartal mitzvah, and then a person will miss out on the mitzvah. Okay. Then he continues. A person should enter. He should go to where he's staying at a time that's called kitoiv, and he should leave at a time that's called kitoiv. Literally, it is good. So what time is kitoiv? It is good. Pirush is means shichnis arvis levesamalin. When he arrives at the place, he should in the evening. He should try and get into where he's staying while the sun's still shining. And he should wait until sunrise before he leaves. Then it's good for him. Because Hashem saw the light was good. Now, again, today, I guess it depends where you're traveling. When times passed, be outside the city walls after dark was not very safe. So therefore, you needed to get in while it was light and don't leave till it was light the next day. Nowadays we drive at night. There's street lights, there's on the highways, various things. Unfortunately, there's also places, even in America, that are perhaps not safe at night. A person should be careful where they're going. Some places aren't safe during the day, right? But generally speaking, a person shouldn't overeat while traveling. Okay. Number 7. When you eat at the place you're staying, the motel or wherever you're staying, or even staying in someone's house, you have to be very careful that the people keep kosher properly if you're going to eat there. And if you're planning to eat meat, in a place you're not familiar, you don't really know anyone there. So what should you do? What should you do? So you have to investigate. You have to ask. Find out who's the shaychet. And who's the rabbi who supervises, who oversees the meat. Because due to our many failings, I don't want to say our sins, but essentially, of our generation, there's a lot of pitfalls in kashrus. But maskil yovan, an intelligent person is going to understand that we have to be careful. Not every so-called kosher certification is actually worth even the paper it's written on. So that's how it is. The meat and kosher came beyayin. It's so much more so with wine. Rabim Rabo misparsim, because again, due to the numerous failings, sins, like a better word, of our generation, there's many people who try to pass things off as kosher, which perhaps aren't. So tzrichen chakira drisha, it's important to check things out. Right? Local kashrus authorities. 8. Shumis palo shachas b'derech. Now, if you're davening on the road, right, you're pulling over the side of the road, and you camp the side of the road, whatever, you're going to daven. Commotion is palo beis knesses. Sorry, Yizaldis Tata Betalis Godel, Commotion is palo beis knesses. You should make sure to wear a talus and everything just like you would in shul. Talus cotton or rachel shag shear. Because the tzitzis, the small talus that we wear, is most people not the required amount, required size. Im halach braglav, and a person traveling by foot, as when he reaches the verse Shema Yisrael, he has to stop walking. And he has to concentrate properly. And if he's riding an animal or he's in a wagon, mutter, he could say it without stopping if he can't. However, when it comes to the Amida, the Shemona Esrei, he should stop. If he's very pressed for time and he can't, then if he can stop the Kol HaPach brachas Hashonis, at least for the first 3 brachas, he should do that. Shalosh brachas Achronis. And then if he can do the last 3 brachas as well, mutav, that's great. And if not, you can daven while seated in the wagon. It's the same person traveling on the plane. You can daven sitting down. You don't have to stand up. V'yaseh kriya miyushav, and where we do the bowing, you just sort of lift a little bit in your seat. So that's what he could do if necessary. But amnon tov yoisa, however, it's far more preferable. Yispala filu miyad ba'alas shacha, to even daven a little bit earlier than the ideal time. You can't daven too early, but to even daven after dawn, which is, it's better to wait until sunrise and to daven standing than to daven after sunrise and daven sitting. So that's not only chakras, we got mincha, also the afternoon prayer. You could even daven from half an hour after midday. If that will help him be able to daven standing up in the proper manner, and that's better than having to daven sitting down. Okay, now ideally, unless we've paid very careful attention to our hands, we need to wash our hands before davening. So, how far do you have to travel? I mean, to get water. I mean, today most places you can buy bottled water in this place, but you used to have to, look for if you're traveling on the outside, you have to look for a river or a well or something like that. Because that is part of the Sarah. And how far do you have to travel to find the minion? This is going to be, we discussed it in chapter 12. So we said you have to go forward 3 mil, and a mil is about 4 kilometers. Sorry, 1 kilometer. 1 kilometer, so 3 mil. About 3 kilometers, about 2 miles. And backwards, 1 mil. Okay. Number 9. Mahalach b'derech. Person traveling. Vegia eisa oichol ulematzamayim. And he wants to eat, which presumably we're talking about he's eating bread, and he doesn't have any water. It's to wash. So again, we explained that earlier in chapters 40 and 42. Sha'oichol pas osla says mikoimoi. And we also learned that one who eats bread can't leave his place until he's benched. And again, we discussed that in chapter 42. So the person should bench while sitting. The Amnon, however, if he ate on the road while he was traveling, he can also bench while he's traveling. Because his mind's going to be more unsettled in Yistarachlis Akev. He's going to have to stop and wait, especially if he's in the middle of nowhere, like in a forest or something. But if he was able to actually stop and eat, well, then then he has to stay and seated and eat bench as well. Right? So the person's on the plane or in the car, various things while he's eating, he's moving, so he can also bench like that. But if he stopped, he actually pulled over to eat, well, then he can bench where he drives off as well. Number 10. Ktsas nohagim. Some people have the following custom. That if they're traveling and they eat in a non-Jew's house, they don't have a mezumin. So they will look in maybe in a hotel or something, or they're staying over in a boarding house. So there's an invitation to the benching. And they don't do the invitation there. Because it's not like a proper gathering. Nevertheless, if they actually did gather together to eat, it's not right to not make the mizum. So you should do it. Okay. And then it at the end of benching, we have various harachamans. Today, we don't really change them up. Um, but there are some people have the custom, if you're a guest at someone's house, you add a certain rachamon. If it's your parents' house, you add one. So those people who do sort of change up the harachamons based on their situation. The Yomer, they will say Rachman Yishlach Lono Bracha Meruba, the Rachman, the merciful one. He sends us great blessings. And wherever we're traveling and wherever we're dwelling forever. And if they've eaten the food of someone who's there, you can say, Harachman Yivarach Es Bal Habayis. And the compassionate one, please bless the master of this house. But Kai al Balasуда, and meaning the person who provided the meal. Vim Lav Yoma, and if they're not eating his food, they should say, Rachman Yivarach Esanu. May Hashem bless us. Okay. Number 11. Medina, strictly speaking. In other words, the letter of the law. Also left Erev Shabbos, Yaisa min shlosh basois. On Friday, you should not travel further than 3 parsois. Right? So, about 7.5 miles, approximately. And the Vaisai by the Makam Achla, this is whether you're traveling to your home, some other place. And this is because you have to prepare for the Shabbos meals. Now, Medinas Eido, in our countries, meaning Ashkenazi countries, and this harmers there, we're not so careful about this. Because most people prepare a generous amount of food, and therefore you can even get for neighbors if need be, or buy from the store. And even that amount of distance today, we can travel by car. We can travel by car. This is like traveling by foot. Become nevertheless. The person has to be incredibly careful. That he has to arrive at his destination, wherever he's lodging, well before Shabbos begins. Because unfortunately, there's been much desecration of Shabbos by people who are running late on trips. Therefore, a person be careful and don't let his Yetzer Hara trick him, saying, there's still so much time, and the road is good, You have to be very careful. Very, very careful. Okay, number 12. Someone's traveling, and he stays at a hotel, stays at the inn, motel or something, for Shabbos. So, im yachalav kidam olatzin. All right, he's got things, like money, keys, whatever he has. If he can put it for safekeeping or hide it. Also, l'chazikam bekisoy. He can't keep it in his pocket. Shayim muksa, because it's muksa. Now, obviously, we're talking about in a place where you're allowed to carry. If there's an Erev or he's only staying in the hotel. So, if you have somewhere safe to put it, then you can't touch it as muksa. But if you're worried that it's going to get stolen, there's nowhere safe to keep it. He should sew it into his clothes before Shabbos begins. And then he has to stay in his house. And he can't go out anywhere where there's no Erev. But if he's worried that because of this, he won't be able to leave the entire day, everyone's gonna know he's got money on him. He's on the mental, and he's gonna get held up. He'll get mugged. Everyone's going to be watching him. Oh, this guy never leaves. He doesn't leave because there's not air in town. He doesn't leave the building. Must be he's got money on him. Mutter says to him, "Shem tefurim bebegdoi." Then, if there's sewn into the clothes, you can go outside. I will im heim bekislev, but just in his pocket. Bechol inin asa. It's forbidden. He can't carry them. Okay. And it says to look further in chapter 189. And we'll get there. That talks about, you're traveling and the animal can't hold its load anymore, what you need to do. All right. So all of this was, we just finished the chapter on traveling, Tfilas Derech, and different things being said while traveling. New chapter 69. Dinei Tfilas Mincha. These are the laws of Mincha, of the afternoon prayer. Okay. So before we get to any laws, he's going to tell us how wonderful or important or great Mincha is. I'm Rabbi Chelboy. That's a quote from the Talmud. It's in Brachos. I know some of you learned did finish the tractate. So Rabbi Chelboy said, Amar Rav Huna. He quoted Rav Huna, says, L'olam is our adam mitfilas mincha. A person should always be very careful and particular about davening mincha. Shari loy na'ane Eliyahu el tfilas mincha. Elijah the prophet was answered only through mincha. Shneimah says, mincha vigash Eliyahu. It was a time of the mincha, and Eliyahu approached. This is in the showdown with the false prophets and on Mount Carmel. The time shefilas mincha hu shuva kokach. The reason that mincha is so special is because Gefilas Shachar man yidur b'boker. Shachar is the set time in the morning. Mekayma mitasa yispal miyad. So you get up out of bed and then you daven. Kain shetar b'askakov. So you daven before you start work, before you go to work, before you do your things. So essentially before you start your day. Gefilas avis b'layla. Zman yidur b'vela beisoy. V'panay masakov. Same thing. Ariv the evening. Mariv the evening service. So when you come home, you're finished whatever you're doing. So again, you're not involved in anything. So Shachar is before you start your day. Mariv is after you finish your day. I would fill mincha, but afternoon prayer. There's still much time left of the day. Rather than talking about soccer, and the person's in the middle of whatever he's doing, whatever his job is. He's busy. So, lasim el liboy, lafnosim mikol soccer, this pabel. And therefore he has to put everything aside and he has to take it out of his mind and daven. So that's a challenge. When you're in the middle of something, it's a challenge to not to focus on it. Al kain therefore, schara harbim oid. The reward for mincha is very, very great. It's a credible thing. Also, it separates the men from the boys, so to speak. It's because again, you have to stop. You have to stop in the middle of something. Okay, number 2. Ika Zimana hu b'tesh lamayla. The best time for mincha is from 9.5 hours after sunrise and onwards. So hunikres mincha katana. This is called mincha katana. Shasat chak, but if need be, going to sarach says with derech. For example, you're going to go on the trip, sarach lechol, or you needs to eat, or whatever it is. Yachal is pal miyad achashay shoyis mechitzim. You can daven straight away 6.5 hours after sunrise. So half an hour after midday. This time is called mincha gedoyla. So that's the starting time. So ideally, the mincha katana, 9.5 hours after sunrise. That's halachic hours. Meaning halachic hours means we take however time it's light and divide it 12 equal parts. So halachic hour in summer might be an hour and a half. Well, halachic hour in winter might be 45 minutes, let's say, because we're just gonna, however long it's light from sunrise to sunset, we divide it 12 equal parts, and that's what we do. So that's the starting time. Till when can you daven? Meshech zmano hu lechatchila ad shara vias shal kodim alayla. The preferred time to finish mincha by is an hour and a quarter before nightfall. Yes, not later. There's a nikres plaga mincha. This is called plaga mincha. I don't think anyone's too concerned about that nowadays. From the time of mincha katana until nightfall is 2.5 hours. And that second half is the time we're talking about, that ideally dam mincha for then. But after the time, or if it's difficult, you can daven mincha until the time 3 stars come out. And this is the custom in most congregations, that they daven mincha right before nightfall. Now that's how it was in Hungary, and you still see it today. People daven mincha right till nightfall. Most other places, and Chabad also would make sure daven mincha by shkia for sunset. Now, as we said before, v'shas eidol hem shas manius. These hours that we mentioned in this halacha, halachic hours. Shas manius literally means like seasonal hours, but it means because it changes. It's however time it is light divided to 12. So in the summer, each halachic hour is longer. In the winter, they're shorter. The hainu, what do halachic hours mean? Depends on the length of the day. From sunrise until sunset, we divide that into 12. Let's say, for example, it's summer, and the daylight is 18 hours. Then an hour and a half is 1 halachic hour. That's what we do. Okay. So, once we approach the time to daven mincha, this 9.5 hours into the day, then you shouldn't start a meal, even a small meal. It means a full meal. I'm talking about a snack. But sit down and have a meal. And close means within half an hour. But if you're not sitting down to a proper meal, you just have a casual bite or drink, snack, peiros or tavshil, dogon, fruit, or just a cooked food, even has one of the 5 grains, some zainis or something, yesh matir, you're allowed to. However, there's some who are strict even about this. Similarly, also the kanas merchatz, you shouldn't go to the bathhouse close to this time, right? Bathhouses just take a long time, like these people sit in the sauna, or the stopper, go get a haircut. Samach, the mincha katana, close to that time. So that's not even having a small meal. So the gedoyla, but a large meal could go in, for example, sudas nesuyin or bris milah kedoyma. You're having a wedding feast or a suda feast after a bris. Also, chaskel for the mincha gedoyla. Then even at mincha gedoyla, the earlier time, even from midday, you can't. Eliam Timo Adzman Mincha Gdoila. Rather, you should wait until that half an hour after midday. Yispal Kodim Hasuda and daven before the meal. Okay. Now, this is, of course, if you're not going to have some type of reminder. But if you live in a place where someone comes around and he reminds everyone. For and you're used to, your custom, you regularly go to the shul done with a minyan. The mutar aschus to the katan, they can have a small meal, some in the katan. Likewise, at many weddings, the whole wedding party stops for a mariv or a mincha or something. So you're going to be reminded. And then even after the time has arrived, that he's going to go as soon as he's called to the shul, he should stop what he's doing and go daven. That's for the small meal. But a large meal close to the later mincha time, that you can never start such a meal. Even when they call you the shul, and even before midday, it's best to be strict, because you might get so engrossed in the meal and you forget daven mincha. That's the concern. They don't want people to forget daven mincha. So this is why weddings normally they all daven mincha before the wedding. They have a mariv in the middle sometime. An official thing. Okay. Number 4. The tefillas mincha tzrichim gan kein tilas yadayim ad perik. They're just like for the morning prayer, you have to wash your hands before you daven. Also for the afternoon prayer, and ideally wash your hands until the wrist. Kamay the for the chakras, just like you do for the morning prayer. Skip all the brackets. The thing that tefillas mariv, likewise for the evening davening. Im hifsik bein mincha, if there was a break between mincha mariv. The musaf, likewise the musaf. Im hefsik bein shachris, if there was a break between musaf and shachris, normally most of the time when we daven, musaf just flows straight on. So if there was a break, sarach little yadav, you have to wash your hands. Okay, number 5. So the mincha starts with the ashrei. It's a chapter of Tillim, or Psalms. So he says, Ein loima ashrei koidem shekoidem mincha. You shouldn't start this ashrei that we say at the beginning of mincha at minyan beis knesses until there's already a minyan in the shul. So the chazan at the end won't be to say the kaddish. And if he said the ashrei without a minyan, and then the minyan came after the ashrei was finished, Yomer Eza Mizmo should say some other quick, short chapter of Tillim, at least 3 verses. And he can say Kaddish. The Chazan should put on a talis before Ashrei rather than afterwards. I mean, Chassidim don't normally put on a talis for mincha, but again, this was a Hungarian. It's written in Hungary. That was a Hungarian custom. You still see there are many Ashkenazim who do wear a talis for mincha mariv during the week. The chazan. But if you do wear one, you got to put on before Ashrei and not afterwards. Shall hafsik bein Ashrei the Kaddish, because you don't want to make an interruption between saying the Ashrei and saying the Kaddish. But let's say there was no talis available. It only came afterwards. You start off Yom Eza Psukim, then you put it on, you say a few verses. Sheshleim Yom Kaddish, and then you say the Kaddish on that on those verses. Number 6. Right, you get on minute, but it's really late. It's almost night time. So what are you going to do? So the normal procedure is we say Ashrei, then half Kaddish, then everyone says this silent Amidah, and then we have a repetition. But it's getting late. There's not time to do that. We're gonna run out of time. It's gonna, for whatever reason, started late. And now if we do this, we're going to get to night before we finish Mincha. What should you do? So he's going to describe what we call a Hoicha Kedusha. So Maschach Sibam Yad Achi Kaddish, the Chazan should begin right after the Kaddish, after the Ashrei. Shemon Esrei b'kol Ram, his personal Shemon Esrei, Yamidah, but in a loud voice. But Sibur lo yispalul, and the congregation does not daven with him. They all wait. The Shomu Onim Ad Sha'amar Kel Kodesh, but rather they listen and they respond when it's time, Baruch Shemoin, Amen, and Kedusha, until after the third bracha of a Kel Kodesh. As Oinim Amen Mispal Lachash, then they answer Amen, and then they daven there Amidah silently. And if there's even less time, and you're worried that if you wait for the chazan, that if you wait for him to say the first 3 blessings, then you won't be able to say your Amidah while it's still day. You can just daven quietly. You try and say word by word with him until that point of the Kala Kodesh. And if possible, there should be at least one person though who can answer Amen to the Chazan's brachas, who's not saying their own midah. Okay, we're going to come to quite a long one now. They won't have time to finish. Anyone have any questions? Rather, what we've learned.
I just have a question. You said if you're eating bread and if you can't wash, what do you do if you're traveling and you have bread and you want to eat bread and you can't wash? What was the answer to this?
Okay, so that's a good one. So it really depends. I mean, today it's probably pretty rare that you can't wash. I mean, that usually you can get bottled water somewhere and pour it on your hands. So very, very rare you can't find water. So hopefully you can wash. Now, if you can't wash, it also depends where you are. So if there's somewhere that you can, a natural body of water that you could immerse your hands in. You don't have a cup, let's say, but you could immerse your hands. So you can do that. You immerse your hands in, and then you say, instead of al natilas yadayim, so wash your hands, say al tevilas yadayim, on immersing my hands. Can't even do that. Best not to eat. Then, but at a certain point, you have to eat, right? Like you can push off eating for half an hour, or whatever it is, till you get to the nearest Walmart or gas station, buy some water. But a person is somewhere they're stuck, right? And if they don't eat the bread, they're gonna starve. So then again, if a person can eat things that doesn't require washing, just try and do that. But then if you're really stuck, a person would eat with something wrapped around their hand. like a glove or a piece of paper or something, so it's not actually touching the food. But I think nowadays it's a very rare occurrence.
I bring a kli with when I go out with some water. But let's say you don't have a kli. What do? Just a bottle of water?
Oh,
You just pour it
yeah,
in
if you buy a bottle of water, you can use the bottle. Pour it straight from the bottle.
the same way that you would do nitilat
Yeah,
yadayim. Both hands, I say.
yeah. You get a plastic cup. It's today normally people, between the stores, even at a gas station, they've got the cups that they sell coffee and different things in. People can get a cup with it. So most times traveling should be okay nowadays.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. All right. So we'll wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful week. And we'll Freilich and Hanukkah. It's going to be Hanukkah. Oh, no, we'll squeeze in the next lesson a few hours before Hanukkah. Right, Sunday night's the first night. So we'll squeeze it in. So we'll see everyone then, and Mr. Shem. Take care.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome.